for aviators is one of the most popular Facebook pages out there. We're going to be talking to the guy that created it on this episode of the Taking Off podcast. Hello and welcome to the Taking Off podcast. I'm Dan Milliken.
I'm Christy Wong, and I love that intro. I don't know why. Every time I just get really into it.
But I think that when I first started doing it, you didn't like it very first time.
I was like, it's so dramatic. And now I'm like, yeah, it's pretty dramatic. I like it.
Well, it's dramatic because we're going to be talking about aviation accidents. So we got to be a little bit dramatic.
Fair enough.
So Christy, on Facebook, one of the things that I have been able to that I found that I really am intrigued by is the Facebook page called Aviation Accidents This Day in History. And now some of our regular audience viewers and listeners know about this, but I've always been intrigued by accidents, aviation accidents, long before I became a pilot, and you too.
Yes.
So I grew up with buying, a Christmas present for me might be the black box recordings of all these famous aviation accidents.
It's morbid, but it's true. I found this Facebook page early on in its inception. Somebody, I think, shared it. And I was like, ooh, that's relevant to my interest because I'm always looking for ways to learn from these types of incidents and accidents. And so I think I subscribed to this page
in its infancy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been following it ever since.
So joining us via phone from the Aviation Accidents This Day in History is Adam. Adam, thanks for coming on.
Hello, how is everyone doing?
We are doing good. So Adam, we got to start with right off the bat, how and why did you start this Facebook page?
So it's a long story, but it's probably an obsession with a show about accidents that was airing on TV. And sometime later, like a few years later, I found a forum for a video game, and you could there were planes in the game. So I went in the forum and started writing stories about crashes and things. And someone joined me in. And sometime later, we decided, maybe we could do a Facebook page about real accidents. Sounds like a good idea. So we started that in 2018, I think.
Oh, wow.
2018, okay. And that's how it started.
Okay, and what amazes me is how on the ball your page is, that you are following accidents almost in real time. How are you able to do that?
A lot of free time, and I take it as a hobby. I don't really play a lot of video games. I don't go walk or go to the gym, do the normal activities. I just like to hop in online and search things all the time.
All right.
Yeah. I am surprised at how professional his page is as well. I think that's one of the things that drew me to it was there's not a lot of speculation. He sticks to the facts. And he just stays very, very professional. How do you mitigate through all of the people throwing in their own speculation? Do you just ignore it, or do you actually address those people?
So, Adam, and also the audience that may be watching on the the YouTube podcast, I'm having to patch you in manually via my phone. Were you able to hear Christy's question?
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay, so go ahead and answer that question. How can you remain so professional when you've got an industry that's rampant in speculation?
I think the easiest way to answer this question is I try to make the posts look like NTSB reports. I try to make it look like the feds. So I will avoid naming things, naming people, that sort of thing. I think speculation is good, but people should be careful when they speculate.
Absolutely.
There should be boundaries when you do such things.
I think it's okay to have a healthy conversation where speculation is interjected. But again, it's about having those boundaries. And honestly, for me, it's about respect as well for the people that have been involved in this. But at the same time, we also want to, create a community where we can have thoughtful conversation around it so that we could prevent these types of things from happening in the future. I think the problem comes when people start getting really emotional about it and, you lose sight of having those thoughtful conversations, and then they just veer off into the insanity of what Facebook can be.
Well, when tragedy happens, I think that it's human nature, it's in our psychology to want to know why.
Absolutely.
To want to know why this accident happened. And especially as us pilots, we want to know why. And so we want to know why when the smoke is still, coming up from the wreck. And I think that's why it lends itself so much for speculation. But Adam, I totally agree with you. We've got to be careful with that because you can speculate. And when you're wrong, you can hurt people with that. So I appreciate the fact that you don't really do much speculation.
Same.
Thank you. And despite this, I do make some mistakes sometimes. We're not perfect. Yeah, we're like, there are times where I've probably messed up, said something wrong, or like wrote the wrong fact. Everyone is,
We're human.
under that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What stands out to you? And since you started this in 2018, what are some of the accidents that have really stood out to you that have happened that you've covered?
I think it's the weirder ones, not the typical, loss of control or fuel exhaustion, these sort of things. It's probably the weird ones, the ones where, someone goes off the runway while taxiing and dies, or someone inadvertently takes off and crashes. These crashes, they are rare, but they happen from time to time, and they're really weird.
Yeah, there's been a couple of very intriguing ones lately that even myself, I'm a little perplexed by.
Like
so,
which?
The Challenger that went down, this last month?
The one in Florida that impacted the wall?
Yeah, that was so weird. I mean, I know that the NTSB is still working through all of the evidence, but it's just so unusual. They were flying, they were fine, they were flying, they were fine, and all of a sudden they're like basically on final to land at this airport, and they're not fine.
No, both engines. I mean, something that just does not happen.
Correct. Yeah. One thing I want to point out is how amazing it was that the cabin attendant or the flight attendant was able to get the passengers out. Unfortunately, the pilots were unable to get out, but the cabin attendant did their job in getting the passengers safely out. That's amazing. It's an incredible story.
Yeah, when you see the video, you're just blown away that anybody walked out of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even the truck driver, the plane hit a truck during the forced landing, and that truck looked like was absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
But the guy made it out alive.
Yeah, that's amazing.
This is one of those accidents where, the primary comes out, the NTSB primary comes out, and it does not shed a lot of lights. It's actually produces more questions than answers. And you have to wait for the final report before, coming to a conclusion. It's one of those rare instances.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there is no real obvious. I mean, you could, there are people out there speculating. Yeah, but no smoking gun, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, insert all the speculation because people want to know, was it birds? Was it fuel? What was it?
Yeah.
Was it some sort of blockage in the line that affected both engines? I mean, it's so bizarre. I agree with that notion. The one thing that really gets me too are the accidents where you think, oh my gosh, how could anybody survive that? And then people actually do survive that. So I'm talking about the American flight in Cali, Colombia, where 4 people survived. The MD-80 that was taking off, I think it was a Northwest Airlines, and they had one 4-year-old girl that survived.
Right.
I'm talking about, Delta 191 where people survived. Those types of incidents, it's those are the ones that intrigue me.
Yeah, I could see that.
And it's a known fact that if you sit in the rear of the aircraft, your survival chances get higher. I think that's what happened with the with the United Aircraft in Colombia, or was it American? The American 757. They were seated in the aft, in the back,
Right.
and they survived.
Yeah, but then you have like Sioux City with the DC-10 that it was just spotty. It was all over the places who survived and who didn't.
Yeah.
Actually, over the
that
wing
felt
was safer.
Like it was just lucky or unlucky.
Yeah. Or what about the real? You want to talk about real bizarre? What about what's her name? Joanna Kopech?
The girl that fell out of the airplane
At 30,000 feet and
survived. And then she had to brave the elements.
The one that was bombed, that holds a world record, I think.
Yeah, talk about your free fall.
Yeah, and then because she was really messed up too, and then she had to survive the elements for like several days, or I think
it was like a month, maybe even.
Was it? I know it was like either days or a couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm just going off memory, but that one was really bizarre. It's things like that. It's human nature. It makes us question like our own mortality. I mean, and it's not just aircraft accidents that I find myself intrigued by. I find myself intrigued by like even automobile accidents that have like really bizarre circumstances around it, because you want to know if that were me in that situation, could I have survived based on whatever physics were happening around me?
I guess for me, not as much automobiles. It's the aviation ones. I don't know why, even long before I was a pilot. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, but that's why Adam's page, I think, has been so successful, is that he's real, he's honest, and if I'm not mistaken, when you have made those mistakes, Adam, I mean, you call it out. Hey, I made a mistake, or you go back and you make sure that the facts of the case are presented, correct?
Yes, and I always put a disclaimer. This is preliminary information. Nothing is confirmed. So take this with a grain of salt. Don't go around sharing this information as it's a fact. This is just early preliminary information that's subject to change.
All right. So I'm curious, Adam. That you'll find out about an airplane crash long before I'll ever see anything. How are you able to? Do you have scanners up in your bedroom playing? How do you find all these?
I think the best source is page followers, because a lot of the times I get, messages from people who were first responders or were in the area of the accident, that sort of thing. Pilots.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Saw something, and that's my main source. Then sometimes I just look up and find something on the news and that was posted 2 minutes ago. Let's see what's up there. Let's see the registration and the circumstances.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The followers.
Well, as you said that, I thought back to one time I reached out to you. So we were at AirVenture, Oshkosh 2023, when a guy that I'd flown with, 2 days later, he had a midair and died, and I didn't know the passenger, but the passenger's family had reached out to you. You and I had started talking about it via text. That was real interesting of how that all came about.
Yeah, he immediately, the family member immediately contacted me. I think he saw a post or something on the page, and he's like, do you have anything? Do you have any more info on this? And what's the investigative process? He was new to this sort of thing. He was not prepared.
Yeah, I met that brother later, and he was hungry. He had no knowledge of aviation whatsoever.
Yeah. And
he was hungry for information of why he just lost his brother.
He wanted to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting. Which then leads me to, with the success of your page, I know how YouTube works, and I know how the podcasting somewhat works now. How are you able to keep this going financially? Does it take a lot of resources? Do you get any resources? How does that work?
No, it's just, as I said earlier, it's just a hobby. It does not cost anything.
It's a passion project.
I don't really get anything from it. I don't use ads or that thing or ad revenue. I did put a donation link because some people asked me if I had something like that, but I don't really check on that very often.
Right. And you don't mention it because I didn't know about it. So yeah.
Yeah, same.
Well, kudos to you for the passion that you put in is keeping all of us in the aviation world informed. Which then also leads to the question: are you in aviation? Do you have a desire to be in aviation? Tell us about yourself.
I guess the technical answer is yes. I do study aeronautical engineering right now. I'm halfway through the university. Hopefully looking for a job as soon as I graduate, maybe at an airport or an airliner or something. Unfortunately, pilot training is very expensive in the Middle East. It's like a shore. It's very hard to get into one of those flight schools.
I see. So you don't think you'll be a pilot, but you're going to get a job in aviation as an engineer?
Hopefully, and maybe in the future, if I get the chance to travel to another country, maybe I can find or train to become a pilot with a lower cost, I hope.
Yeah, well, the airport Chrissy's at has a huge international flight school. Chrissy, talk about...
Yeah, U.S. Aviation Academy. I was actually a flight instructor there during my flight instructing days.
And almost all the students were international, right?
At that time, yes. At this time, I know that they've really focused on more domestic students. But,
interesting.
But I believe that they still take international students, and they still have a way to do that.
Well, and that reminds me too, and Adam, you might recall this. So last year, when the ATR crashed in Nepal, the pilot was a female who her husband had died in a plane crash. She wasn't a pilot. And as kind of like her journey, she ended up coming to the United States to get flying lessons, and that's how she became an airline pilot. It was very tragic that then she,
Yeah, and she met the same fate.
Yeah.
I don't remember the crash that killed her husband.
I think it was in the 90s, like 96 or something.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Oh, I don't really keep up with that story, the Nepal crash, because I feel like the world of commercial aircraft, the passenger aircraft, is a whole different world. I don't like to touch on that subject a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are like people who specialize on it on YouTube and other sites. So, yes.
Yeah, that's fair.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that speaks to another thing, is that there is a glut of YouTube and Facebook and social media accident investigation stuff now. I mean, I've been guilty of it too, but it's amazing of how much that's being produced now.
Yeah, it's a healthy and bad thing at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you have to pick your choices correctly. You can't take your sources from anywhere. Sometimes people post wrong things. I've seen that before. Not everyone is perfect, as I said earlier, but sometimes people just post unacceptable things.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And so, what's the future for aviation accidents to stay in history?
For right now, it's just the same old posts, nothing new. I'm thinking to expand the YouTube channel, maybe try to produce more accident review videos, that sort of thing. But right now, I'm not sure if I can do that.
I wasn't aware. Do you have a YouTube channel right now?
Yeah, it's the same name of the page.
Okay.
But it's mostly for like NTSB videos you find in their dockets.
Right.
Combined with the reports.
Well, I've got to check that out then. I did not realize you were doing that. I've only been, watching it in a daily manner on Facebook.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
it's a very small channel. I don't talk about it a lot on the Facebook page.
Well, we're talking about it here. So if you guys are listening, check out the Aviation Accidents to Stay in History on YouTube. I know I will. Now, why did you come up with the name, a name like that? Aviation Accidents, then : quote, this day in history. Why not just Aviation Accidents?
This is a funny story because originally there were no quotes. It was the page was focused on historical crashes, famous airliner crashes and things. But as I dove more into the world of aviation, I started to like the journal aviation side of things.
Right.
And if you see see my recent posts, I don't really post that much historical crashes anymore. I just
Right.
feel burned out, and I might change the name later. Actually,
Right. Well, that makes sense, and yeah, because I think when I first started watching the page, there was quite a bit of historical posts.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, and those posts are surface levels. I'm pretty sure there are better sources online.
All right. Okay, well, I encourage everybody out there to go visit Adam's Facebook page and YouTube page. It's really, really good stuff because, I mean, it really is the facts. If I'm doing research on an accident, I will check his page because it's been extremely helpful.
He's probably one of the first sources I go to when I'm looking for information.
Yeah. Well, Adam, thanks so much for taking time. It's a whole nother time zone for you right now, so I have no clue if it's in the middle of the night or what for you. So
It's not in midnight, but it's a perfect time actually. I'm sitting here not doing anything, and thank you again for having me on the show.
It's so nice to talk to you. Thank you so much, Adam.
all
Maybe
right.
we can do this later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, we need to get you to the United States. We'll give you some lessons, get you into a school, and make a pilot out of you.
I hope one day.
All right, very good. All right, so all of you guys listening and watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff, thank you. And don't forget our sponsors. We're sponsored by 67 Designs. They make incredible camera tablet mounts. I've actually got the GoPro right now on a 67 mount as we're sitting here. And Marshall Protective Services, mpsprotects.com, Colton Mortgage, coltontakingoff.com, clemensinsurance.net. Jerry has saved me a ton of money. And Z-Vision, the brightest landing and taxi lights out there. And, of course, I'm not going to forget, because Christy's looking at me, Flying Eyes. FlyingEyesOptics.com. Use our discount code, taking off all caps, one word, for 10% off. Christy, it was a good episode. It was fun talking with Adam.
Yeah, so much fun. He's a great guy. He's been a lot of fun to talk to, both on air and off air. So
Yeah. All right. So, guys, we'll catch you next time.
on
Stay
the podcast,
safe.
yeah.